I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzales.
And welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world. The Bush administration's treatment of prisoners and interrogation methods is coming under increased scrutiny this week following the declassification of a 2003 memo. The memo shows the Justice Department told the Pentagon that presidential authority overrode numerous laws banning torture or cruel treatment of prisoners in U.S. custody. The memo endorsed assault, maiming, and even administering mind-altering drugs on prisoners. The memo was written on March 14, 2003 by Attorney John Yoo. At the time, Yoo was a deputy in the Department of Justice's Office of Legal Counsel. Today, Yoo is a law professor at the University of California, Berkeley. Meanwhile, the British attorney, Philippe Sands, has just published an article in Vanity Fair exposing new details about how Yoo and other high-ranking administration attorneys helped design and implement the interrogation policies seen at Guantanamo, Abu Ghraib, and secret CIA prisons. According to Vanity Fair, then White House counsel Alberto Gonzales personally visited Guantanamo in 2002, discussed interrogation techniques, and witnessed interrogations. Also on the trip was David Addington, then Dick Cheney's chief counsel, and William Haines, the general counsel of the Department of Defense.
Alberto Gonzales, Haines, and Addington and Yoo made up what Sands describes as Bush's torture team of lawyers. Sands argues the actions of these lawyers might have amounted to war crimes and could result in their prosecution overseas. Philippe Sands joins us in the Firehouse studio, international lawyer at the firm Matrix Chambers and a professor at University College London. He's the author of the forthcoming book, The Torture Team, Rumsfeld's Memo and the Betrayal of American Values. His last book was called Lawless World, America and the Making and Breaking of Global Rules. Welcome to Democracy Now!
Very nice to be with you.
Talk about your major finding.
Well, I adopted a different approach from the last book. I didn't deal with documents, I dealt with people. I spent about a year and a half tracing all of the individuals who had been involved in the signing of a single memo by Donald Rumsfeld, which authorized the interrogation by harsh methods of a single man at Guantanamo, a man called Mohammed al-Qahtani. And I traced the story of that memo through the lawyers and the other individuals. And so I think I got to the heart of what had happened.
Tell us that story.
Well, I think that the administration's narrative has always been they really didn't authorize these things. What happened was it started on the ground at Guantanamo. They faced a situation with individuals who they thought presented a threat to U.S. security. And from the ground, from the people of Guantanamo, new security, new interrogation measures were requested. And so it's a bottom-up theory that the administration has always pushed. What, of course, emerged, as many, I think, suspected, is that that's not an accurate narrative. It, in fact, came from the top down, and there was a small group of lawyers coalescing around the president, around the vice president, around the Secretary of Defense, Mr. Rumsfeld, who basically drove the whole thing through.
And the role of John Yoo, again, who is increasingly appearing in many reports over the last few years as at least the paper author of so much of this validation of these policies. His role in particular?
Well, he was basically their gopher. I don't think he was the driving force. I don't think he was the intellectual brains pushing pressure on people down at Guantanamo. That came from the more senior lawyers. But he was the convenient ideologue, if you like, who was there able to sign on the dotted line and authorize things that others certainly would not have authorized. And I think the most significant aspect is that this new memo that has come out mirrors an earlier memo that he wrote that was issued in the name of his boss, Ghraib, on the 1st of August 2002. The administration has always said that that memo of the 1st of August 2002 had nothing to do with policies actually adopted by the administration at Guantanamo, and I think I've blown that argument out of the water.
We know about the memo to the CIA, then this memo to the military, to the Pentagon, that says that they do not have to abide by. Well, why don't you tell us what that memo says?
Well, I think the starting memo, there are two memos on the 1st of August 2002. One has been made public, one has never been made public, which deals with individual techniques of interrogation. That memo was, it turns out, the basis for a decision by Mr. Rumsfeld on the 2nd of December 2002 to authorize new techniques of interrogation on one detainee at Guantanamo. The administration has always said there was no connection between Mr. Rumsfeld's decision in December and the earlier memo of John Yoo and Ghraib. What transpires is that Mr. Rumsfeld's lawyer, who goes by the name of Jim Haines, in fact knew the contents of the earlier Yoo memo and was able, in effect, to rely on it when advising Mr. Rumsfeld. So the idea that somehow this came from the bottom, from a lawyer like Diane Beaver or the camp commander at Guantanamo, unsupported by the Justice Department, is, I think, wrong.
And in your article, you talk about one of the memo that approves 15 of 18 possible methods that is personally signed by Rumsfeld, and even adds a few editorial comments in the process. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, it's become a very famous or infamous memo. It's the one where he writes at the bottom, "Why is standing limited to 4 hours? I stand for 8 to 10 hours a day." And he approves 15 techniques of interrogation and then leaves open 3 other techniques, including waterboarding. Those techniques were used over a period of 54 days on Al-Qahtani at Guantanamo until one of Jim Haynes' colleagues, Alberto Mora, who was the General Counsel for the Navy, stepped in and said, "This cannot go on." And the order was then rescinded, but not before, I think, he had been abused and almost certainly also tortured. So it was a memo that had a direct effect, and it was a memo that was completely contrary to the United States' international obligations, to the Geneva Conventions and to the Convention Against Torture.
And to the Alberto Gonzales' trip to Guantanamo. Could you talk about that?
Well, I've spoken for the first time, or at least people I've spoken with have for the first time now become publicly identified as closely involved. Diane Beaver was the lawyer down at Guantanamo. Mike Dunleavy was her boss. General Hill was the commander of United States Southcom based at Miami. I've spoken to all 3 of them. And both Diane Beaver and Mike Dunleavy, who've largely been scapegoated by the administration, described to me the visit that Mr. Gonzales made, accompanied by Mr. Addington, who's Vice President Cheney's lawyer, and Jim Haynes, who was Rumsfeld's lawyer. They came down, they talked about interrogation techniques, they apparently even watched an interrogation or 2. I was told that the driving individual was Mr. Addington, who was obviously the man in control, and I was told in particular by Diane Beaver that she was quite fearful of Mr. Haynes, and she also shared with me that Alberto Gonzales was rather quiet.
We're talking to Philippe Sands. His book is called The Torture Team. It's coming out in a few weeks. His piece in Vanity Fair is called The Green Light. Can you talk about 24, the TV show?
I can. I can also reveal an embarrassment, which is that when I was interviewing Diane Beaver, she, and I wasn't recording it, I was taking handwritten notes. I wrote down very quickly 24 Becker. And then when I got back to my hotel room and typed up the notes, it didn't ring any bells for me, so I typed it out. I typed it into Google, and it came up with 24, do you mean 24 Bauer? So I typed yes, I went and followed it, and of course that opened the door to something that came completely unexpectedly, that the individuals down at Guantanamo were watching and were being influenced by the TV program 24. I went back, I spoke with others, including Diane Beaver again and Mike Dunleavy, and went into great detail. And it turns out, as she described it to me, the TV program 24 had many friends down at Guantanamo, and the timing is fascinating. The abusive interrogation started in November 2002, just 3 weeks after the start of the second series of 24, and it seems that there was a direct connection between that program and the creating of an environment in which individuals felt it was permissible to push the envelope, as it was put.
And what did the lawyer say about 24?
Diane Beaver no longer feels able to watch 24. I mean, she told me she recognizes now that this is extremely problematic, but that 24 was being broadcast into Guantanamo by cable television. The first series ran throughout 2002, and they were active viewers. It was an extremely popular program.
So would you like to reveal your encounter yesterday?
Well, I had a rather curious day. I'm a great soccer fan, and my team was playing in a big football match, and I was in a bar on 38th Street. And astonishingly, as Arsenal scored a goal and went 1-0 up, I missed the goal because someone walked in front of me. A few moments later, the person that I was with, who was one of my colleagues from Vanity Fair, said, "Do you realise who that was?" I said, "No idea." He said it was Kiefer Sutherland from 24. So there was this rather curious moment of finding myself, having written an article about 24, with one of its protagonists watching a soccer match.
And, in the article, you have some harrowing descriptions of the actual interrogations that were being conducted of a particular detainee there, and and the records that was being kept of his reaction to the interrogation. As you explore the definition of torture, both in terms of medical or legally.
No, it's a really important point. I mean, I'm a lawyer. It's not for me to determine what is and is not torture. It's a mix of factual issues, of legal issues, of medical issues. So what I did was I went and identified some completely independent clinical psychologists and clinical psychiatrists, spoke with them. One in particular, Dr. Abigail Seltzer, who's a British National Health Service doctor, deals with trauma patients. I gave her the interrogation log of Mohammed al-Qahtani. She spent a week with it. She came back and she'd marked it up in various colours. And what she was looking for, I gave her the definition of torture in international law, severe mental or physical pain or suffering. She went through the torture log and she marked it up with different coloured pens.